Hello and welcome everybody to the Pixelogic ZBrush live stream. I'm opening up my chat, so feel free to type hello or whatever you want to say in chat. Maybe shout out where you're from. My name is Ben, or you can call me Polygon. It doesn't really matter to me. And welcome to the Pixelogic ZBrush live stream here. If you're new here, click that subscribe or follow button, and if you want to check out more of my stuff, check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Polygon, or check out my Gumroad for courses, brushes, materials, blah, 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 blah. Check it all out. We are going to be doing a demonstration tonight on actually creating some low poly assets in ZBrush, which is something that I've been playing around with recently. And I've done a lot of stuff with it in the past as well, but as of recent, I have created this low poly foliage package, which you might have seen me post on any of my social media platforms. Specifically for some, like I said, foliage, so trees, grass, some rocks, just some really simple stuff that we are going to be looking at creating in ZBrush. So these are renders that I actually did in a different software. It doesn't really matter what software you render in, but I will be talking a little bit about some simple lighting setups that you can play around with. If you guys want to get this, just gumroad.com/Polygon, or you can stick around tonight and maybe follow along and learn how to do some of this stuff yourself. So you can see that I played around with some different like spherical trees, some square trees, some different styles of pine trees, snow-capped stuff, as well as maybe some like ash, or I don't even remember what type of tree this was, but just kind of playing around with color and some different stuff there. So a lot of fun. We'll probably be aiming somewhere similar to this style tonight, but obviously once you kind of get the workflow down, you can go any direction you want with it. Let me move this little chat window off to the side so I can see everybody here. Chris, what's going on? Welcome back, man. Zaid from Egypt. Hello, Egypt. Wow, it's out there. Opposite side of the planet for me. Anubis, what's up, man? Welcome back. Finally catch you at a time where I am available. Glad to have you. And good morning. Well, for me, it's the sun's about to go down in just a couple hours. That's why I got my big light on, because I know as I'm streaming here, I forget about it, and then it starts to like slowly get darker and darker as the stream goes on, which is always fun. All right, we'll give like a minute more here to let some people join in, and then we'll go ahead and get started on the demonstration so we can make sure that we have enough people here in the beginning for those that want to follow along. From Wellington, New Zealand. Ooh, we got some Weta friends maybe. Raga, what's up? Hello, hello. And Francisco. Fred, how you doing? Fred Marquis, welcome back, man. From Quebec, so you're, I don't know what's longitude or latitude. I don't know. You're close to one of those lines with me though. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking, man. I am doing fantastic. So as some more people are popping in here, again, we're going to be doing some low poly assets similar to this. Oh, and if we hopefully have some time at the end, we'll try to do some like cute little character. I'm thinking like a little Sasquatch thing, walking through the trees. It'll be cool. But we'll be playing around with, if you are familiar or unfamiliar maybe, and you've wanted to learn these tools, we'll be playing around with Decimation Master tonight. We'll be playing around also with the zmodeler brush, which is the poly modeling tool in ZBrush, and then just a bunch of other stuff as we go through it. So hopefully you'll pick up some new tips and tricks, etc., tonight. If you guys want to grab this, Gumroad/Polygon, but let's go ahead and get started here. Working on a Spider-Gwen. That sounds awesome. Would you add suit details before or after the pose? I guess it kind of depends on what the character looks like. Is it high poly, low poly? Is it a texture? I would probably add it before. It depends on how much it's going to deform though. So if it's deforming like a ton in a crazy pose, might cause some stretching, so that's probably something to consider. You wish you lived close to Weta. So do I. Yeah, the zmodeler brush, if you guys aren't familiar. It's BZM on your keyboard. I have it down here on my little hotkey row, or whatever you want to call it, my custom UI. Anything that I point out in the UI, in my UI, I'll show you guys where it is in the standard UI as well. All right, let's go ahead and start. So the first thing you need to do is just grab any old 3D object, doesn't matter what it is, and just click on Make Polymesh 3D so that it is actually able to be manipulated. That's pretty easy. That's kind of the first step. I'll go ahead and press it just so you can see where that button is up there up top if you're brand new to ZBrush and have never done this before. Scroll on down. This is the tool menu over here, tool palette, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter, to initialize. And in the initialize palette, we are going to set all of those sliders to 1 and click on the Q-Cube button, which stands for Quick Cube. I have that down here in my custom palette, so that is where that is, Tool Initialize Q-Cube. I will be using it down here in the future if I need it again. Feel free to ask any questions along the way though, if I point out something that you don't know where it is. So we got a cube, a very simple cube, right? And if we grab that ZModeler brush, BZM, right, on our keyboard, and you try to play around with the ZModeler brush, by default you'll see that it'll start pulling out all these faces of geometry, similar to an extrusion if you are familiar with poly modeling. If not, there's actually an extrusion method that we'll look at as well. But for now, that's kind of a good way to look at it. It's called Q-Mesh. You can not only pull polygons up, but you can also push them back in and kind of delete them a little bit. If you do it on something like this, well, you might end up getting rid of the center of it. So there are a lot of cool applications for the Q-Mesh operation with the ZModeler brush. To change the operation of the ZModeler brush, all you have to do is hover over a face, an edge, or a vertice, and hold the space bar. And it'll give you this different context-sensitive menu. I typically only interact with faces and edges. You can see kind of the difference in menus there. Very rarely do I interact with points unless I am trying to do maybe like a split operation. It's pretty rare here while I'm doing quick little poly modeling stuff in ZBrush. But before we use the ZModeler brush, we are actually going to start manipulating our geometry without it. So one of the cool things about ZBrush and being able to poly model with the ZModeler brush is not only do you have the ZModeler brush to do that, but you also have all your other brushes that you can interact with, and other tools, I should say, that you can interact with in ZBrush. For instance, if you use the 3D gizmo, if we have any fans of that here, it's a great tool to play around with. I actually like the transpose line a little bit more, so I'll be using that tonight. It's pretty much exactly the same as the 3D gizmo. There are some differences in functionality. It's not really important. If there is a difference or something that we need from one that the other can't do, I will specifically point it out. So I think the first thing we're going to do is make one of our trees, one of our low poly trees here. And I think we're gonna start with this style because it's really simple, and then we'll look at doing something a little bit more complex like this style here afterwards. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing we want to do, and before I actually start manipulating, let me make sure I didn't miss any questions. Gizmo for life. We got one gizmo for life and the transpose line. You got used to the transpose line, so you actually prefer that as well. Wow, it's very rare that I find someone else that prefers the transpose line. But let's go ahead and manipulate our little cube here. So this is a pretty simple shape that we're looking at, one of these trees here. It's pretty much a pyramid, right? A prism. So to create a shape like this, what do we need to do to our cube? We need to stretch it and we need to taper it in. So to do that, what I like to use is masking. And we are going to be using that in conjunction with the transpose line or 3D gizmo, like I said. So I am going to turn off symmetry. If you have symmetry on, just hit the X key on your keyboard to turn that off and hold the control key. There, well, I'm gonna turn off my transpose line so I can actually use masking. So if you hold the control key, by default, you will have the mask pen active, which you can use to draw masks on objects like so. Pretty neat, very useful. A mask is just something that allows you to manipulate geometry without manipulating other parts that are masked. You can invert your mask by control tapping, a bunch of cool stuff you can do with masks. What we are going to be using though tonight is the mask lasso. So hold the control key, tap up here, and select the mask lasso. And I am just going to go ahead and unmask the top of my object If for some reason your mask is acting a little bit strangely, make sure that your RGB intensity up here is set to 100 when you are holding down the control key to activate your mask. So let's go ahead and just mask off what we don't want and use our little transpose line here to shift our face up. Very simple, I know, but I want to go through the easy stuff here in the beginning once, and then we can kind of skip over it like after we do it multiple times. So that's great. This little white circle centers our transpose line, and we can swap over to scale instead of move to start tapering that shape in. And just like that, we have our basic prism starting. If we want to get that to be a little bit smaller, we can kind of taper that in a little bit more. So that's one way that we can do that with just a simple cube. Let's also get some color on this while we are here. So I'm going to switch to mRGB up here, swap on over to my paint material. If you guys don't have the ZBrush paint material, I recommend using the Skin Shade 4 material. So I'll grab the Skin Shade 4 material here instead, and let's just select kind of a desaturated orange color, maybe a little bit darker, something like that. Cool. We'll just click on Fill Object, which should all be over here by default. If not, if you're not seeing any of this stuff, it's up here in your color menu. From here, we're gonna go over to our tool menu and just duplicate this object and slide it down. So now you can kind of see where we are getting to a place where we can start to get some, I don't know what you would call that. What's the word? Stair stepping, maybe? I don't know. It doesn't matter. And all I'm going to do is use move and scale to go ahead and slide some of these down, scale them up, duplicate again, and just kind of repeat this process. And I'll just do this a few times, and I'll show you how we can get some variation out of these. So we got that, and if you guys remember, we had that cube earlier. I kind of want that cube again, so let's duplicate an object and initialize it so that we can get a cube back. And we are going to make that cube, using the same tools and techniques, into a little tree trunk. And we can maybe play with proportions and scale this up and down and get that into place. And I'll turn on perspective, and we kind of already have the beginnings of a pretty simple tree. Just like that. Oh, and you know what? Maybe let's go for that, we'll go for that same look that I had for the kind of like ashy tree. So I can maybe show you guys how I created these little stripes. You could do that with a texture. I ended up doing it with geometry, actually, which is very, very, very easy to do. And I'll go ahead and show you how to do that real quick as well, so we can kind of get something in a pretty much similar style. So we can go back to our zmodeler brush, and we looked at the QMesh operation, which was the default operation, right? But this time we are going to be looking at an edge loop function. In ZBrush, this is called a polyloop. So if you hover over a face and hold the space bar, choose Insert Polyloop, and down here just click on Polyloop. So Insert Polyloop, Polyloop, while hovering over a face. I'm going to press Ctrl W because that polygroups everything as a single polygroup here. It's just Ctrl W on your keyboard. You can press it as many times as you want. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and tap on our face to insert a nice little polyloop. From here, we can do that a couple more times to get some, different variations on that. So we got a few different edge loops, and if we want to move these, we can do that very simply by hovering over an edge, holding spacebar, and choosing Move Infinite Radius. Move Infinite Radius is something that will grab an edge loop and allow you to kind of move it wherever you want. But that's not exactly what we want. We don't want our tree to kind of look like that. Maybe you do, I don't know. But for me, I want to just grab it and slide it perfectly along the tree, the tree here. So hold the shift key, and instead that edge loop will slide perfectly. And I'll just grab a few of these edge loops and kind of maybe just pull them around and get some different variations of spacing. Next up, we just want to bevel that shape. which is hovering over an edge and selecting bevel with the spacebar held down, of course. And we'll just bevel that out. And you can probably already see where this is going as we start to get closer towards that shape. What's awesome about ZBrush when using the zmodeler brush, one feature that I really love, is that when you do something like bevel or extrude or really any operation, in the future it will remember how you did that, or how maybe how far you extruded an object or how much you beveled an object. In this case, all you have to do is tap again and it will bevel it the exact same width. So for instance, if I pull it out this far, the next time I do it and just tap, it will do it the exact same distance. So pretty cool. We'll just kind of eyeball it and get it pretty close. There we go. We got our nice and simple little edge loops there, and we've beveled them to create some variation. And what's really nice here is that everything is set up with some different polygroups, which can be very nice for selecting different shapes here, which we will do in just a moment. Yes, a happy little tree, absolutely. All right, so again, what we're going for here is this little pattern at the bottom of the tree to give some variation to the bark of the tree. And to select these, there's a lot of different ways we can do it. The way that I'll be doing it is by using a selection brush. I prefer using the selection lasso a lot of the time. So if you hold Control and Shift and come up here, by default it should be the select rectangle. There's a lot of different selection brushes that you can choose from now, as well as some slicing and cutting brushes and all sorts of cool stuff. I'll just be using the select lasso, which is right here. By holding Control and Shift, you can make a selection, which is pretty nifty, so it hides part of your geometry. And by holding Control, Shift, and Alt, you can deselect geometry from being visible. The operation that I just did there to show backside polygons is called double. That is down in your tool display properties, double, right there. And I pretty much always keep that on if I can. So Control and Shift selects visible, Control Shift Alt hides is maybe another better way to phrase that. So I'm just going to hide and show certain geometry here, and go ahead and make some quick selections so that I just have, well, I gotta get this one too. Hide you. Oh, let me, you know what, here, I'm being silly. Let's just use the selection tool that we already have, which is just holding Control and Shift and clicking, which will select a polygroup. You can see it's being a little bit finicky here about its selection, but it can be, I'm not sure exactly why it's selecting that polygroup as well. But Control Shift click, it will select the polygroup that you want. I am going to use it to select a few different polygroups here. It's being a little bit odd with my selections, which I think is why I was probably doing that to begin with. All right, we'll get it. I'm just gonna set up some different polygroups for these. All right, I think I'm gonna go back to what I was doing, because I think that's probably why I was doing that. I probably just ingrained in myself why I do it and forgot exactly why I do that every time. Hopefully I can just click here. It doesn't want to do it. It does not want to be my friend, which is okay. We'll make it work. Yeah, if I can, probably go back to my select lasso. All right, so this is what I want to do. I'm going to set up individual polygroups for all of these, and I'm actually going to start splitting these off, because this is eventually what we are going to do, is we are going to split these polygons off to make them a separate mesh. So to do that, go down in your tool split menu and choose split hidden. So that will split that into two separate polygroups, or I'm sorry, two separate tools, which you can see now, and I'll see, there we go, we're starting to get the selection I want. I don't know why I was being weird there, but we got it figured out. So we'll split that off. Again, tool, split, split hidden. You can go ahead and set those up. Now these are separated. I want them to be merged into one, so we'll just select merge and click on merge down. Cool, so we got that, And now I'll just very easily do the same thing that we did on the orange part of our tree and the bark of our tree and fill this in with a different color. Something that feels maybe a little bit more similar to what we had before. So something like that. So that's a little bit uniform. We could sit here and split this up a little bit more, but for the sake of our demonstration, we'll kind of continue on here. It's really easy to make variations on the tree that we're looking at right now. For instance, we could turn off certain parts of our tree. I'll go ahead and merge some of these down just so we can like organize it a little bit more. So we could hide certain parts and stretch them, and all of a sudden now we have a second tree that we can start to use as a variation. So that's nice. Really simple to make variations from there. Go ahead and turn on perspective. Very simple, low poly tree, modeled with the ZModeler brush very quickly. And yeah, like I said, very easy to make more variations from there. Just testing your patience. It is a feature which they update with every version. The selection is actually the same. It was just being a little finicky with selecting. So as a quick explanation, the select rectangle selects polygroups, or at least it should. So if I click on this, no matter where I click this blue polygroup, it should just display this polygroup. Same thing with the yellow one. But if you're using the select lasso, which I was originally, it will select edge loops as well and display those. So you can see how it kind of hid part of that geometry there. It was doing that a little bit being finicky with both of the selection tools for some reason. I do not know why. But that doesn't really matter too much. So now that we got it figured out, I'll just merge all of these objects into one nice little tool, because guess what? We have polygroups set up, and hopefully they should work. Okay, so now they're working. Now it's oh, okay, that's displaying 2. That's fine. That's fine. We'll make it work. It does, I guess it is being a little bit weird with these. Hopefully now that they're all the same, it will not be. Okay, now it's working. So for some reason that was being a little bit weird. Okay, let's go on. So we got this kind of basic tree set up. Very easy to set up a few different variations. 1 second here while I check. Okay, just checking something on chat. We'll go ahead and make one more tree here and then start setting up some of our other scene elements. You don't see the finicky? All right, so from here, instead of using our good pal, the cube, we're gonna use our good friend, the cylinder instead. So if you scroll down in that initialize palette, instead of doing a 1, 1, 1 quick cube, do a 2, 1, 2 quick cylinder Y. So that will take whatever geometry you have selected. Ooh, nice, beautiful artifacts, get rid of those, and turn that into a cylinder, much like what I have on screen right now. If you scroll down under Tool, Geometry, Crease, and click on Crease with the default of 45, and then press the D key on your keyboard to smooth out the object with a smooth subdiv, or a dynamic subdiv is what they're called, it will crease the caps of the cylinder very nicely, automatically for you. And we are going to do the exact same thing that we did to our tree, to the cubes of that tree, but this time we're going to be doing it with the cylinder. So again, using masks to stretch out our object and then scale it in up top. Now we will be doing something a little bit different this time, but before we do that, let's go ahead and just duplicate this a couple times to get the, or you know what, here, let's do this. Instead, I think I'll start subdividing this object by pressing Control D on my keyboard. The objective is just to get something that's a little bit smooth. It doesn't have to be super clean or anything like that. I'll go ahead and change the color a little as well. And what I'm going to be doing is using really any sculpting brush. It doesn't matter what sculpting brush you use here, but you just want to get a little bit of variation on your object. So I'm just using my personal clay brush, But if you guys want to use another clay brush or the standard brush or, like I said, literally whatever, doesn't matter. We're just trying to get a little bit of surface noise on here really quick. And that is pretty good. Because the edge down here is really sharp, what I'm going to do is hold the shift key for my smooth brush and start to soften that edge. If it is not smoothing out as much as you need and that edge is still really sharp, just press Shift D on your keyboard or step down in your subdivision levels and it'll smooth a lot faster, a lot more easily. All right, so there is our basic shape. And before we do the low poly kind of exercise trick on this with Decimation Master, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with, I am going to duplicate our object, do the exact same thing and slide it down to get some variation here, nice and quick. Another cool thing that you can do with the transpose line in 3D Gizmo is instead of duplicating the object, as long as the object doesn't have any subdivision levels, you can hold the Control key and then slide it down and it will duplicate it for you, which is pretty cool. All right, now with this all set up and duplicated, I am going to run what's called auto groups. There are a lot of different automatic groups or automatic grouping functions in ZBrush with the polygroup menu. Auto groups will just give every separate object, every polygon island, its own group here. So auto groups, tool, polygroups. And then from there, I'm just going to mask off a few of these, add a little bit more variation with my sculpting brush, and then we'll kind of look at the cool little trick here, decimation. Kind of set that up, get a little messy, looks good. We'll maybe use our move brush to create some variation here, something like that. I think that's probably fine there. So there's our kind of top portion of our tree. For the base, I think we should probably reuse a cylinder to kind of stick within the same shape language. With this tree, we're very squared off. With this one, we're starting to be a bit more round. So let's duplicate everything and again use that quick cylinder Y button to create a tree trunk. And then we'll just do the same thing that we did on our last tree and go ahead and get that into place real fast. Just kind of scale that real quick. If you guys remember, we clicked on crease and had that creased up for us automatically, which is very nice. And I think we'll just grab kind of an off darker brown color there. All right, so it doesn't look like the low poly tree that we expected, and that's because we need to do a little bit of a decimation to this object, which is very easy to accomplish. So for that, all I'm going to do is make sure that I have this tree color sampled. So hover over any object, any 3D object or UI element in the entire ZBrush user interface and press the C key, C, like cat, to sample the color. So I could sample my background color, you can see that changing. I could sample anything on here, I could sample this sphere. I'm gonna sample the tree though. And then from there, we are going to open up the Z plugin menu. I have that docked over on the left side of my menu. If you're unaware of how to dock palettes, you can click on them, click that icon and drag it over, plop it over there. And we are looking for Decimation Master right here. So we're gonna open that up and just click on Pre-Process Current. So this typically goes pretty fast. It obviously depends on how many polygons you have in the object. Here, 200,000 polys, you saw it went in just like a couple seconds there. So we've pre-processed the current selected subtool, and now we're going to click on Decimate Current. It doesn't really look like anything happened other than our object turned white. But if I turn on Polyframe with Shift F, you'll see that if I step back and forth between those, the polygon distribution is a lot smaller. It has done what is called decimation. It has decimated our object. Essentially what that means is it tries to retain the shape of the object, while still reducing the poly count. So for instance, if you had a flat plane and you decimated that object, well, it could accomplish a plane with just a single polygon. So that's not super hard for it to do. So anywhere that there is less detail, there will be less polygons, and anywhere that there is more detail, there will be more polygons. But this is still not the low poly look that we are going for. So let's lower this a lot more. I'm thinking like 1% of what we just did. Let's click on decimate, and there we go. Now we're starting to get somewhere really cool. We can maybe fill in our color. I'm thinking even lower. Let's try 0.1, decimate. There we go. Now we're starting to get somewhere pretty cool. We're starting to get some low poly shapes in here. You can play around with this for as long as you want to try to get the desired effect that you want. Maybe you could play around with your actual polygon slider here if you want to go for a very specific number of polygons or something like that. Here's another example here, and we can continue actually. Where's auto groups? There it is. To manipulate this object even more from here. So if you like the look of the shape, but maybe it's starting to like not fade into the other objects quite as nicely as you would like, well, with a little bit of tweaking and adjusting with your move brush, you can start to get that in a little bit of a better place. So that's starting to look pretty cool. Got a nice low poly tree, pretty simple as well. And I think I'll scale this down because it seems like it's a bit thick for what we want. Awesome. So let's merge everything together there and take a look at our two trees. So we have this kind of pine tree here, and we have our square kind of like ash maybe style tree here. So we've created two low poly trees. The second one went a lot faster because we spent a lot of time talking about the tools. From here on out, I will not be talking about a lot of the tools that we're reusing, but there we have it, two really quick, simple trees. So now we want to start setting up our scene and maybe adding a few extra objects like grass or rocks and do a character. So I'm hoping that in the next 30 minutes, we can maybe get our environment pretty much set up. And then for the last hour, we can work on a cool low poly character. So hopefully we have enough time. I've never done a demonstration like this, so I haven't really timed it, but we'll play it by ear, figure it out. Lucia, welcome. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a great night. Yes, Decimation Master. It is an awesome little application, little plugin here. We'll probably be using it more later, so I'll just keep it open over there on the little sidebar. But let's go ahead and start setting up our scene. What I like to do, or you know what, I am going to close it because I can't see my UI completely. What I like to do is set up a ground plane so that I can begin placing some of my trees. And if you guys remember, if you just initialize a quick cube, you can start manipulating that object pretty quickly using your transpose line or 3D gizmo. In this case, I am using it to manipulate a simple ground plane. You could actually use a plane, but I want to use a cube, something with thickness, because I would like to get a similar effect to what I've done here with these. So it's like a little tile. And maybe you could imagine a situation where you had a bunch of these tiles and you can like piece them together. I think that would be pretty cool. That'd be something that I'd like to experiment with in the future and maybe 3D print some of these. Grass would be a little bit tough to print, but depending on the scale, you could get some trees out for sure. So yeah, we can set up our little ground plane. I like the idea of doing, I don't know, maybe like a snowy landscape. I've already done that once, so maybe we'll do something different. Let's just set up a few different colors here. Grab like a dirt color, and then maybe like a grass color as well. What I'm going to do is just duplicate these objects and slide them over top of each other so we can fill them with some quick color, just like that. So it looks like you're kind of taking a slice of the ground there. And of course you can duplicate and do as many of these as you want, and it's probably a good idea to get some variation in scale so that they don't all look exactly the same, because that's pretty boring. It's starting to look a little Minecrafty. I honestly could not remember the name of Minecraft there for a moment. A fun little trick that you can't do with the 3D Gizmo, to my knowledge, is a clip. And that didn't do it accurately, so that's unfortunate. There is a way to make this perfect, but I don't want to spend the time to do it right now. I'd rather just kind of line it up by eye and continue on. We'll maybe talk about that later if we have time. All right, so we got our tree, we got our basic little square environment. If we need, we can start to scale the tree up or down depending on the scale of our environment. I think this is probably pretty good in terms of scale for what I'm looking for here, for just like a little slice of life, so to speak. So we can start placing our tree and duplicating it, but that would be pretty boring because our tree is going to end up looking very repetitive and similar. So what I would normally do is make a bunch of different, maybe like 3 to 5 different tree variations, and then by rotating them, scaling them, and just having them at different angles, it will look a lot more varied. But with one tree, that's kind of tough to do. So let's duplicate our tree and try to get just a little bit more variation out of what we have so far. So as a little trick for something like this, we'll go ahead and split that off. And I am just going to subdivide this object. So it starts to get a little bit more smooth here. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to subdivide it and re-decimate it so that we get some different form. It seems backwards and weird, and that's because it is, but it works. It works for getting some quick different variation for something like this. And of course, you still got your move brush and all your other sculptural brushes if you want to make some more changes, but I think we'll just stick with what we got here. Go back, pre-process, current, and give that a little decimate again. So as you can see, there should be some differences between the two. So a little bit of different shape going on in some parts. Polygon distribution is different, pretty different. And then of course, we could make this smaller, taller, fatter, whatever you want to do to it, to make it even more varied. Or even something like deleting one of the caps. So maybe it's a little bit smaller, something like that, which honestly is something that I'm gonna do right now. So I will, whoops, there we go. And I'll just stretch that up, like so. And you know what, I kinda like the shorter, stumpier look. We'll keep that. Then I'll just merge those tree pieces. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Tree parts. Merge all the tree parts together. Beautiful. All right. So they're all overlapping, so I'll just kind of move these out of the way so that we can see our 3 different trees. So not a huge bit of variation between these two, although the shaping is different, but a little bit more between these. So there's a lot of different ways we can get some more variation between these, but we're gonna call this good and go ahead and start placing these in our scene. So what I like to do first, we'll just kind of move these down to make sure that they are on the ground plane or intersecting the ground plane. And we'll start to move these around. Engine, whew, I don't know what just happened to my throat. Engine X, welcome man, welcome back. It's been a minute since I've seen you around, hope you were doing well. Yes, it does give good triangle. Use it for lazy anime hair. I've never thought of using it for anime hair, but that would be interesting. I'm trying to think how that would work, like what that would look like. I guess like really low, like spiky hair, like low poly spiky hair maybe? I don't know. There's probably like a few different variations and ideas you could play around with it. But yeah, let's just go ahead and start placing our trees here. I'm just gonna put a few of them back here. Now if you guys remember, a little bit ago I said I wanted to maybe do like a little scene with like a Sasquatch walking if I can. So we'll try to play around with that. But what we want to do is start getting some duplication for our trees. So we could sit here and duplicate these trees one at a time, but that's going to end up being a lot of work. So instead what we are going to do is combine all of our trees and then duplicate all of them at once. So we'll just merge all those together. And I have set up some quick poly groups here between the tops and bottoms of our trees so that we can just select here. So we got the bark on the bottom and the branches up top, and it's pretty easy to just select those and swap between the two. Awesome, so let's go ahead and duplicate these. Click on duplicate, and what I'm going to do is just rotate them all around like 180 degrees. Place them a little bit in front here, and then start to move my trees around using masking and my transpose line or 3D gizmo to start getting some more variation. So it's pretty easy to get a lot of these very quickly, but what you don't want to do is end up having everything look exactly the same. So even though you're rotating and moving stuff around, little things like scale, making things a lot larger or smaller can really have a big difference here. Even though it's nice and easy to do, a lot of little things can make a big difference. Let's go ahead and move these into place. Just like that. And then what I'm going to do is grab these again, merge everything together again, and duplicate one more time here. And we'll just go ahead and rotate that around. Maybe something like this. And we'll try to get that into position there. And essentially what I'm trying to do here is create a U of trees with us kind of being facing the clearing of it. And that is where I want to have like a little Bigfoot character or Sasquatch character walking. So we'll duplicate that. We'll duplicate one more time and pull all that over here. Very symmetrical. That is not what we want. So let's add some more variation. Go ahead and get some grouping between these. Typically when grouping objects, it is a bad idea to just have everything be even. That ends up looking really awkward, very kind of done by human hands. So what I find works really well in giving a nice kind of random look, but also giving some periods of rest and visual interest to the eye is to try to group like 2 or 3 together for something like this, and then have maybe like one off by itself, or like one larger one and then like a smaller one next to it. You just don't want to have everything be perfectly even, because then it just starts to feel weird. Go ahead and do something like this, and let's see here. And I want to get some more trees in the back as well. But we just got to make sure we check this from time to time. We'll also get some variation in color here because these are all feeling very similar as well. So let's go ahead and merge. And we got a nice little scene starting to come together pretty quickly. I would like to get a couple more trees in here, and then we can maybe look at creating some grass and rocks and other simple little things like that. Yeah, get some Sasquatch going, absolutely. Van Veen, what's up? Welcome. Alright, we'll do a couple more trees, like I said. Kind of like our little stumpy tree. So we'll get maybe like 1 or 2 more of him in here for sure. I think there's too much kind of negative space there. I want it to feel more dense, specifically in this middle section. I think the sides feel fine from that angle, because that will be our viewing angle. So let's get this guy here. You got to be careful with your masking too, because as you can see there, it's kind of grabbed that tree a little bit. Even though I didn't select it, my mask wasn't on it. Gotta be careful. So it looks like it's good now. Tends to be a little bit finicky there. And I should mention, the way that I am hiding things, so quickly, hiding and showing things so quickly like this. I have a hotkey set up for what's called solo mode, if you're unfamiliar with it. It's an awesome tool. It's down here, it's just a solo button. It will only display your selected subtool. You can turn that on and off down there, or set up a hotkey like what I've done here, which is very nice. All right, let's stick with that for now. I might do some like small variations to a couple different things here, but I would say for the most part that's probably pretty close to what we want. So let's get some rocks and not trees, already got trees. Rocks and some like little blades of grass or something like that. Rocks are really easy because we've already looked at all the techniques for how to do them. So yeah, let's do it super quick. What we want to do is grab a sphere. So I'll just append a sphere object here. We can even set up our color for our rock really quick, some kind of maybe lightly bluish color, something a little bit different. So kind of like a grayish bluish, very desaturated blue. And from here, I think we'll probably look at the exact same technique that we looked for the pine trees here. So instead of just sculpting directly on it at first, I'm going to use my move brush and just start to give this some shape real quick. And I'm just kind of doing this randomly. It doesn't have to be super specific, and maybe taking a clay brush to it to give it a little bit of texture. And then we can go ahead and decimate this, but before I do that, there might be a problem with the caps of the sphere. We'll test it. We'll see if it works. Let's see. Pre-process current. Decimate current. Way too low in the poly count there. There we go. So something like that. Let's go a little bit lower though. Let's go like a third of that. Awesome, so we have the beginnings of our low poly rock in just a minute or so. Very easy, quick and simple. So we can rotate this to get some more variation out of it. It's really easy to make more of these, as you've just seen. I kind of like the idea of having one larger rock in the scene. Maybe central to the scene there, and then we'll dish out like a few more smaller rocks. So like I said, we can just duplicate this and maybe move it around a little. And of course, it's nice when you're doing something like this to kind of plan out the angle that you want to set up your final shot for, or from, I should say, so that you can kind of get an idea of where everything's going to be and if there's any weird like overlapping or gaps that you need to take care of. So for this, for setting up your shot, what's really nice is you can go into your movie menu and set up a camera angle. I like to use the timeline to do this. There's actually a way that you can set up a camera now, which I believe is just in your draw menu under your camera settings. If you see down here, you can store your current camera view and then kind of swap between those really quickly. I don't have this menu docked though, so another way that you can do this, an older way that I like to use from time to time, I'm not going to be exporting a camera. I just want to turn on my timeline in my movie menu. So I can set that up, kind of get a nice angle here. It'll probably be like a 3/4-ish angle. Maybe a little bit less, maybe like more from the front. So maybe something like this here. If you just click up here, it stores your little point on your timeline, and then if you move stuff around, you can get it back by dragging that red line. All right, so that means that this rock is definitely not visible from our kind of basic view, so we'll kind of adjust that and maybe scale it down. And let's make like one more rock variation to place around, and then we'll make some grass. Boss Tony, what's up, man? Welcome. How you doing? Candy face, what am I making? So tonight we're doing a low poly demonstration. If you guys are joining us a little bit later in the stream, no worries, everything gets uploaded to YouTube after this. If you guys want to check out more of my stuff, it's just youtube.com/polygon. We are working on something that you guys can find on my Gumroad, which is my low poly foliage package, which I released just within the last day or so. So there are a ton of different variations on trees and low poly assets that we can create in ZBrush that I've been playing around and experimenting with recently. So we are going to continue, I should say, going through the process here of setting up one of these scenes. And I'll be talking about rendering and some stuff a little bit later too. So let's very quickly do one more little rock. A little bit too low on the poly count. Get an idea of where we can maybe put one of these so that it's visible. Play around with scale or depth, even rotation angle. There's so much that we can do to this stuff to just very quickly get some variation that's really easy to do, which is nice. So we don't have to do quite as much work for no reason. Honestly, a few rocks is probably enough. We'll just throw one back here or something real quick. A little bit too much visual interest right there. What I'm trying to do is get the visual interest to be a little bit more where Sasquatch is going to stand, and I think he's going to be about right here. So the rock's kind of pointing in towards that point from a visual, or what's the word, from a, can't think of it. It's just, we're aiming the visual interest at the character, hopefully, once we get him in there. All right, let's organize a little bit here and then create some grass. Just dropping in to say, love your work. Well, thank you, Katie. That's very nice of you. I appreciate that. And no worries if you gotta go or if you guys want to check out the stream later. It gets uploaded, like I said, on YouTube. But thank you. That's very kind of you. Well, thank you, Candy Face. Yeah, low poly stuff is really fun, really simple to do in here. All right, grass. Now, grass is a little bit more complicated than creating rocks because we have to go back to using the zmodeler brush. And actually, you know what? I'll show you guys something really cool that's a little bit different than what we did before. So we were using the zmodeler brush earlier to create poly loops in our geometry to create this kind of effect on the bark down here. But let me show you guys a little bit of a different technique using a slice brush to get some poly loops. So we can just kind of stretch, or squash, that's the opposite of stretching, I guess. Squash, I almost said it again, and stretch our shape into a basic kind of blade of grass, you know, just something really simple like that. And you know what, let's do something even more interesting to show off some more stuff. So I'll select only the front side of this so that it's like a single plane of geometry, just like that. And we will edit that a little bit more here by using the slice curve brush, which you can find by holding Control and Shift and clicking up on your brush and selecting the slice curve. Make sure that you are using the slice curve and not the clip curve or the trim curve. Has to be the slice curve. And then again, by just holding Control and Shift, you can click and drag that out, and just like that, you create some edge loops or poly loops in your geometry. I'm just going to draw out a couple of those, like so. And it's a little bit tough to see my geometry because it is flat and one-sided, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and just rotate it ever so slightly. And then just start masking off some points of geometry and rotating them. So essentially what I'm doing is slowly giving our grass a little bit of curve. So there's our blade of grass. Very simple and rudimentary. But if we want to give this some thickness, we can do that with the zmodeler brush. And we could sit here and try to Q-mesh each polygon or extrude each polygon, but the zmodeler brush has a lot of functions that make this a lot easier. So hover over a face, hold the space bar, extrude all polygons, and we'll just extrude that like so, or as deep or as shallow as we want. I'll say about right there. So that looks pretty good to me. I just want to make sure that my polygons are facing the right way. Let me flip that. If your polygons are reversed, if your normals are reversed and your geometry looks like it is inverted, like mine does right now, you can fix that down in the Tool menu under Display Properties, Flip, and it'll flip your normals. If you don't know what a normal is, it doesn't really matter. But if you see that, just click on flip and you'll be good. You'll be ready to go. So our blade of grass is a little bit big, so we probably want to scale that down and start spreading that out and getting that set up. I love your memes. All the memes. That's what I'm known for on Twitter. All my CG memes. All right. So our grass, very boring, and duplicating a blade of grass a million times sounds like a pain. So let's make this a lot easier on ourselves by duplicating the blade of grass a few times and then being able to duplicate that. Kind of like what we did with the trees, but just on a larger scale. So we'll set this up, get some scale, some variation in rotation. The more variation, the better. And there we have a simple three-pronged patch of grass. Now we can duplicate this more times and do some other stuff with it to kind of adjust it and make some more variation, because having this shape everywhere is going to become very, very obvious if we just kind of repeat this over and over again. So what I'll do is I'll just duplicate my blade of grass and try to get some more variation here with a few different ideas. So like one idea I had was that we can just duplicate it and maybe rotate a few of the shapes here, something like that, and even scale some of that up or down. So there's like another little thicker patch of grass. We could make one that is more thin. So we could just have like a 2 chunk there. Pretty easy, like I said. Once you have one of these, it's pretty easy to set up just like a bunch of variations of it. Cool. So let's use those to duplicate and set up our grass. So like I said, this could take a while if you don't do it correctly. So what I like to do for something like this is I will work in one quadrant of my little cube environment and just add some different patches of grass through duplication really quick. Duplication, rotation. It's all about just getting as much kind of quick variation as we can. We don't have to be super specific, and honestly probably the more, or I'm sorry, the less in this case would be more, I would think, because most of the focus is going to be here in the middle of our scene anyway. So we'll kind of do that a few times and just merge all our grass together. And then what we can do is actually just duplicate that into our other quadrants, and anywhere where it's maybe penetrating a rock or a tree or anything like that, we can just get rid of it. So really easy to do, like I said. Now that we have that set up, let's clear our mask. You know what? I think I'll make, let me see here. I think this grass is just a little bit too big compared to our trees. So let's scale that down quite a bit. And as you can see, whoops, we kind of need to spread that out a little bit more now. So I'll just do what I did exactly the same as before, but now we just have more stuff to duplicate, right? So you can kind of use that as like a little stamp or stencil, duplicating, rotating, and adjusting as you go. So we'll just get like a few different patches of grass here and there. You know what, we can clear our mask and then duplicate all of that, and wow, it's just like all sorts of grass real quick. Like I said, very easy and simple to like set up, but what I recommend doing after you kind of start to set up some of this stuff is that you go back through and clean it up, make sure that there's not like a ton of repeating texture to the grass. There's not stuff that is interpenetrating your trees or anything like that. I think I'll do like a quick little check to make sure that that's not happening too much, but just for the sake of time here for our demo, we will kind of carry on. Alright, let me get rid of all of the extra garbage from my quick lazy duplication. Voila, we have grass. Beautiful, I know, so complicated. Hopefully I'm not going too fast here and you guys are able to follow along with some of this stuff. Or maybe at least pick up on a couple things along the way. Alright, simple grass, simple scene. I would say that is probably good for our quick little scene setup here. I'll do some more stuff to clean it up. But we are halfway in, so I say we swap on over to creating our character, which, if you didn't hear me say earlier, is going to be some kind of like little Sasquatch type of character that we're gonna get like walking through these trees, maybe looking at the camera, doing a goofy face or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So we can save this out and start a new tool, but because it's in the same scene, I'm just going to append it here to my subtool list. We can maybe create a folder. What's awesome about the newest version of ZBrush 2019 is that we have folders that we can set up, and you can sit here and name these if you want. I am, for the sake of speed, just going to create a couple untitled folders real quick and get all our objects in there. And we can close that up and turn on and off visibility for all of that. But yeah, let's go ahead and append a sphere and get started on a squatchy character. And we already got a nice kind of brown here, so let's maybe stick with something like that. All right, now the fun, creating characters, right? And we're gonna be playing around with creating some low poly effects with this as well, I think. Because we're not going to make them super complicated. I think the more simple here we can get them, the better. We'll still make them fun and probably a little derpy along the way too. Okay, so we got our sphere. I have an idea a little bit in my head what I want to do here. To kind of create like a big bowl of a character with some minimalistic hair and like a beard. Let's go ahead and just set up some of the primary shapes by creating the overall ball of the character. I'm using the Insert Multi-Mesh Primitive brush to, oh, are we facing the wrong way? Ah, we are. Alright, I'm facing the wrong axis. That's okay. Fix my scene there. And now we'll use the Insert Multi-Mesh Primitive. There we go. That's what I wanted. Alright, so I'm going to start creating some arms or some basic shapes for some arms here. We want them to be a bit more visually interesting, so we'll add like a little bit of taper to this shape. Whoops. Turn on Local Sim. Local Symmetry allows you to scale in on an object even if you are doing it across a symmetrical axis. And he's gonna have some big ol' arms, big droopy arms. Again, we're just trying to get those really simple shapes here in the beginning. I'll be using Dynamesh along the way as well. If you guys are unfamiliar with Dynamesh, it is something that dynamically remeshes. I know, Dynamesh, crazy. Dynamically remeshes your geometry. The slider affects your resolution, but I have it down here in my hotkey menu, or down here in my custom UI, so I'll be using it down there. But we can go ahead and continue adding in a few shapes. If you guys have any questions about Dynamesh, maybe like when to use it or how to use it, even, I have an awesome video over on my YouTube channel talking about the difference between Dynamesh, ZRemesher, and I think Sculptris Pro, maybe just Dynamesh and ZRemesh, talking about the difference between those and like when to use them. So if you're interested in that, youtube.com/Polygon. You can actually search on my channel, but I think if you just type in Dynamesh versus ZRemesher, I think it's titled something like that. It's probably like the second video. Jay Hill beat me to it. But yes, ZRemesher or Dynamesh. Quite a lot. Check it out. Alright, let's get some legs on this guy. And we'll start playing around with some of the extra shapes. So I want him to be very stubby, a little bit like I said, very rounded, kind of egg-shaped. Let's see here. Probably a bit more stubby. Pedro, what's going on? Welcome. Welcome to the stream. How you doing, man? I think I want to kind of get an idea for blocking out the face here. So I'm thinking, how do I want to do this? Let's duplicate our sphere and just continue to insert some more geometry. So I just want to insert something that could be like a little tuft of hair on top of his head. Something like that. And the important thing when blocking out a character is not to get too focused on, you know, everything being perfect at this stage. Really, it's just about getting everything in. And then from there, you start to worry a little bit more about proportions and setting things up correctly and all of that. Now, he is a squatch, so I want his arms to be, like I said, pretty long, a little bit knuckle draggy, kind of. And yeah, let's figure out what we want to do for the face here. So I think he's probably pretty much going to be like one solid color. Now we're going to be using Dynamesh on this, or I'm sorry, Decimation Master on this, to make things have that kind of low poly feel, much like what we did with our trees. So having the shape be super clean and perfect really isn't going to matter too much once we do that. But we do want, like I said, to get those main parts in pretty quick. So what I'm going to do is duplicate my body that I have right now. I'm going to turn on transparent and scale it in ever so slightly and set this up as like kind of just a rough skin tone really quick in the middle there. And then on the front, I'm just going to use my clay brush or move brush and start pushing in on that top object there. So I just want to create like, so I want him to be, he's like covered in fur, right? He's a Sasquatch, but then his face is like still going to be visible in here. So we'll just do something like that. And I think it's a little bit easier to do this with your move brush, honestly. People always ask me what brushes I use, and 99% of everything I do is with the move brush, so there you have it. Let's maybe go a bit larger. I think bigger eyes, get a little bit more expressive. and something like that for where our mouth can go. And again, we'll play with this shape here a little bit. Let's just get some quick eyes on here, and then we'll continue on. Ooh, our sphere looks a little bit stretched. I'll actually squash it and then line it up. And I'm going to set up the toy plastic material with my eyes for now. Toy plastic is great for creating just a quick reflective material in ZBrush. It's good for eyes, it's good for kind of like a metallic-y feel, anything that might be reflective. Alright, we'll make those eyes nice and big, and then I will also get those a little bit more flat on his face. And let's see. Let's go ahead and stick with that for now. So, like I said, very simple, very rudimentary, but we have all the parts and pieces in there, and now we can start manipulating them to work on proportions. So what I'm going to do is activate something in the Z plugin menu called Transpose Master. If you're unfamiliar with this tool, Z plugin Transpose Master, click on T-Pose Mesh. It'll take all of your subtools and put them in one single subtool that you can manipulate everything at once. So this is an extremely powerful tool. I use it all the time for posing characters or adjusting proportions like what I'm about to do right now, or for making just, quick changes, quick fixes to, multiple subtools at once. It's great for a lot of different things. So let's go ahead and adjust a lot of this. So we got a lot of the stuff in, but we want to switch it up. So let's start doing exactly that. So definitely too round. So we're gonna adjust that shape. Get something here. I think I'm probably gonna make his arms a little bit noodly, and I don't know if I want to do like super stubby legs or maybe a little bit noodly as well. But right now, everything's just kind of like a sphere that I've squashed and stretched, so it's not super complicated or anything. It's not like we've gotten too complex here for our own good. So that's nice. Let's go. I think what I'm going to do is just scale this here. Do something like that. And then actually create a little bit of a separation there between his body and his head, just to kind of play with that a little bit. I wanted to make him like really round, but it was starting to feel a bit awkward. So I think making the whole thing as one shape kind of seems maybe like a bad idea. But hey, that's the point of doing something like this. You just start really simple, and then you don't really get caught up with wasting a ton of time in the beginning. It can be quick and experimental. I'm gonna go back into Transpose Master, I think, here in just a moment. So we can now adjust with that new object. Alright, so we got our head. Very simple spherical body. Like I said, I don't want to make him perfectly spherical though, so we'll scale this up. I'll just use my move brush and kind of squash and stretch and adjust that. And there we go. We're starting to get a little bit more unique here. Something like this. So I think this will make a bit more visual sense once we start combining some more stuff. So we can still make him very round, but at least this way he's not just a ball. All right, awesome. And I think maybe I'll give him like a little bit of taper in the body so that he's not quite so boring. Taper is just kind of one of those fundamentals that makes things a little bit more visually interesting. And there we go. With the magic of Transpose Master, we've manipulated a lot of stuff really quick, and we can continue on with our weird little dude here. Now I wanted to do rounded shapes, so I'm going to stick with the same shape language for this guy. And I'm going to start combining stuff now. So that doesn't mean that I'm going to start going high poly or anything like that. I'm going to still keep things like really, really low and simple. And honestly, I'm going to keep things a bit messy because we are going to be using Decimation Master again here in just a moment to continue working with this guy. So what can we do to make the face a bit more visually interesting? I think I kind of warped the eye a little bit there. What do we think? Some big eyes, some small eyes. Sasquatches are probably not that smart, so maybe a bit smaller. It's kind of mean to Sasquatches, but maybe it's true. I don't know. Let's see. We'll just add in a few more shapes here, and then we'll start looking at doing some decimating. So if you weren't around for the, symmetry was not on there for sure. If you were not around for the decimation part earlier, this will be pretty fun. For the mouth, what is he doing with his mouth? I think he's probably like surprised to see us. I think that would be fun. So I'm going to use a curved tube snap brush, which is just a default brush in ZBrush, and draw out like a little mouth. Run a mirror and weld function on that, which you can find under Tool, Modify Topology, Mirror and Weld. So he's, you know, a little derpy, but that's okay. Like I said, he'll probably end up being a little derpy. But still very low poly, that's for sure. Alright. Looking a little Batman-y. And then let's start combining and adjusting some of the rest of our geometry here. One thing that I'm going to do here with the arms is kind of chop these off and give them some simple hands. Something super, super simple. Like I said, it'll all come together once we decimate it. That's kind of the point of doing it. Alright, let's combine. Like, you know what? Let's wait to combine. I'm gonna do the same thing with the feet down here. Bog, what's going on? Welcome. I'll probably add some more variation there. Alright. And as long as we have enough time here, we'll talk about some lighting. Hopefully we can make it. I'm trying to go quick on this just to get something out. And we'll look at lighting. So I'm doing some quick shortcuts to cheese some stuff a little bit. Let me see here. You know what? Let's delete our little ring. And instead of doing that, I think instead, if I can, make his mouth area a little bit wider. You know what? Let's just do like a quick tiny mouth. Instead of doing that, what I had before, I will use the curve tube snap brush yet again, but this time let's do like kind of a cute like catty mouth. If you've ever seen like the three mouth, as it's known. All right. And there is some stuff that's breaking in the back, but that's okay. Okay. So from here, I'm going to need to do some transpose master stuff, but I think there's just a few more parts that I want to get on this guy before we decimate him. And I want to make sure that I have all of that in before I do that. Let's do some insert meshes. And we'll use the same techniques that we did for creating our trees to kind of pull out a quick little tooth. Quick little Sasquatchy fang. And like I said, we're trying to go quick here, so this isn't normally probably how I would do this. But for something quick here for our demonstration, I think it'll work fine. I am, I think, going to fill this all back in and just have it be the eyes that are, oh, come on, covered up there. So, excuse the quick explosion of geometry, but I want to do this stuff really quick. So I think we're good on a lot of the shapes. I just want to do some proportional stuff. We're good on parts, not necessarily good on shape. I want to adjust a lot of that though. So for example, I want his mouth to be much larger on the face because we're going to be rendering from a distance. We want that to be visible. Same thing with the eyes. He's just gonna be walking off in the distance, being a little goober, Sasquatchy goober. And now I wanna adjust the shape of his actual head to be a little bit more visually interesting than what we have right now, including the position and scale of said head. And I also want to add a beard. Something to transition from the head to the body, and I'm thinking a beard will be nice. So these arms are a little bit thick to be noodly. Same thing with the legs. We'll have to probably adjust that here in just a moment. Looks like something you'd see in South Park. Well, I have not watched South Park in a while, but I love me some South Park. What's up? What's up with you, guy? Let's do the beard. So for the beard, I like the curved tube snap brush a lot. We'll use that again. Boom. All right. Now for the beard, I am actually kind of just using it as a transitional piece so that the head and body don't feel like they're just kind of stuck together. So that's kind of what we're doing here. But again, everything being super clean and perfect, like I said earlier, doesn't matter because we are decimating this. So let's just kind of like pull this around really quick, as well as do the same thing around the moustache region. So get something real quick up through there. And for those that aren't familiar with mirror and weld and curve brushes, essentially what I'm doing is I'm drawing the curve brush on without symmetry. The reason you do that is because when you draw out a curve that meets in the middle of a symmetrical axis, it tends to break where it connects in the middle. So that is why I'm doing that. I'm just trying to get this to a place where it's a little bit more visually interesting. Although he is very doofy, but that's okay. So I'm trying to do stuff quick, so excuse the lack of explaining, please. A little bit of rotation here. And let's maybe make the arms swing a bit more. Maybe like lean him back a little because he's like hunched forward or hunched forward. I need to run auto groups on this because that's getting really annoying. I just want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about lighting here at the end. It's a very noodly arm. Noodly army. I kind of want to do the same thing with the legs, but I'm going to have them be in the opposite direction, of course. You know, focus on our contrapposto, our good posing for our stupid little Sasquatch character. And very quickly, just gonna do some editing here to proportions. And I'll fix the rest of that here in just a moment. All right, so let me decimate our arms. Again, over here, preprocess current, and decimate. Some simple low poly stuff. Let's move this leg even further back so we can break the silhouette more. I'm not sure why this is freaking out. There we go. Get a little, just a little bit of a step action there with the foot. Something super quick. It won't matter once we decimate it, I don't think. Go ahead and fill in our poly paint. And we're getting there. We're getting somewhere real quick. So this is kind of the effect that we're looking for those that are maybe just joining us and don't know what's going on at all. No worries. We are working on a little environmental scene here, and we are creating a little Sasquatch to put in it. So we've been doing a lot of low poly stuff this entire time, and I'm very quickly trying to make a little Sasquatch character that we can add to our scene. Something just kind of simple, real fast. Like I said, he probably wouldn't come together until we started to get some of the stuff here at the end. We'll do the same thing to the nose. Get that little low poly schnoz in there. I'll just keep the mouth and eyes the way they are, kind of clean and simple, and not decimate those. I think that would kind of destroy the effect of the eyes. Same thing with the mouth. We'll just keep that all the way it is. Let's go ahead and create a folder for that guy. We'll stick with our trend of saving time and not naming things. Get in there, come on. All right, awesome. So we got our forest scene, we got our giant Squatch. He's way too big. So let's grab our 3D gizmo, because this only works with the 3D gizmo. Remember I said earlier that I would tell you if one thing doesn't work with the transpose, or vice versa. And we are going to transpose the set. So what that will do is that will allow us to move and adjust all of our individual subtools for our Sasquatch character here all at once. Oh no. He's being weird. Is symmetry on? Symmetry is on. That's what was going on there. Let's go ahead and bring that back to the middle of our character. And I think think he's too big compared to our trees. So let's scale him down. Get him in there. Let's see. How does that look proportionally? What do you guys think? Maybe a little bit smaller. Let's go just a little smaller. And I think I will move him just to be a little bit more central to the scene. So something like that. I'll probably adjust that a lot more for the final image if I end up actually rendering this. But now I want to talk a little bit about lighting before we kind of end here. So we have maybe about like 20 minutes left on the stream or so. So any questions that we have about anything that we just did or anything that you maybe missed before we continue on, feel free to shout it out before we do so. But if not, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about lighting. There is rigging in ZBrush, but it is not the type of rigging that you would expect, and in my opinion, it's not something that I like to use personally. Personally, I like to manually pose my characters. So, for instance, if you check out my art station, you'll see a bunch of different characters, and all of these have been posed in ZBrush using transpose master, as well as just, you know, manipulating my subtools through sculpting tools. So that's how all those characters were created. If you are trying to rig something to be animated, though, that is not something that you can do in ZBrush. Which tree is the happiest? I'm gonna guess this little guy up front because he's cute, fat, stubby, and he's within view of the camera. Or at least about where we're going to render from. Alright, yeah, he is a chonk, that's for sure. So, again, for those that are just joining us, if you have missed some of the stream, you can go to youtube.com/polygon and check out the upload later once I get that on there. Yeah, so let's go over to Blender really quick. And I will be using Blender for this demonstration for lighting, but you can absolutely do this in any rendering software. I just enjoy using Blender for setting up renders. So what we're going to be looking at very quickly for the next 20 minutes or so, and maybe even try importing a couple things really quick, or I can at least talk about the process for that. We're going to be talking about setting up some simple and nice lighting, and I'm going to actually keep it non-software specific because there are so many different softwares out there for rendering, and I think they're all great. It's really just about kind of understanding that you're working what you're working with. So if we kind of look at the top of our scene here, you'll see that I have these three planes set up, and these planes are set up with light, or light materials in Blender here. So I am going to explain a little bit about what we're looking at. So this is a very simple studio lighting setup, and I don't have the lights turned on right now, which is why this looks very dim on the right. And to set up something like this, all you need is 3 pieces of, well, I guess 4 pieces of geometry. You need your floor plane, which is something very commonly made as just like a flat plane that curves up, which is what I've done here. And then you just need three planes. I have recently started using spheres just because the plane light emitter has a very kind of odd cutoff between the corners of where the light terminates. So it's a little bit awkward, so I've been trying to experiment with some different shapes. Spheres tend to work a little bit better, I have found. But yeah, let's kind of look at this. So we have 3 lights set up. And why 3? It's called a 3-point lighting system or 3-point lighting setup. It's very simple. You have a front light or a key light, you have a side light or a kind of a fill light, and then you have a backlight or a rim light. The key light, which I will turn on here right now, is your primary emitter. This means that it should be it should typically be the strongest light in your scene. Again, I'm not going to talk about the values of this, but I'll maybe talk about the relationship between the values of the lights. So this should be your main light. It should be the your main illuminator. The fill light should complement that light. It should not overpower it, unless you're maybe trying to go for like a super washed out scene or maybe something specific. So this would not be the same strength typically as your key light. And the reason for that is, like I said, it starts to kind of overpower that. This can also be dependent on the scale of your light, the distance of it from your scene. In this case, you would probably want to make it, if it's like the same distance. For this, I'll make it like, we'll try half of what I had there before. And that actually looks like it's doing pretty well there. And then the backlight or rim light is something that you can, in my personal opinion, you can do without in a lot of cases. For something like this, I think it's something that you could probably do without. It's really nice when you're trying to light a portrait to get a really nice rim light around your character. For this though, I don't think it's super necessary, but I will go ahead and turn it on just so you can see how much more light we get in the scene and how well things kind of work here in tandem. I have a great GIF that I created showing all of this as well over on my Instagram. If you guys want to check that out, Instagram/Polygon, that just kind of describes what 3-point lighting is very in a very like easy way to understand. I was hoping that this would like make it a little bit more visually apparent. Maybe we can just turn off every light except for just like 1 or 2 here. So you can kind of see how much of a difference not having something like a key light makes in a scenario like this. Or if you just interact with only your backlight and what that kind of looks like. So having just a key light or just having one light or just a couple lights here, I think it can work, but I think typically it feels really boring and really flat. What's awesome about 3-point lighting is that you have the ability to experiment with lighting your scene from multiple directions, so it doesn't feel super boring. And pretty much every time I set up a quick little render like this, I try out something new. So I'm not always using the same values, I'm not always using the same exact placement for my lights. I'm trying to experiment and try to create something a little bit different. So that is something that I recommend playing around with. Like I said, I don't want to talk software specific here, more so just kind of generals in terms of how you could set something like this up in KeyShot or in Maya. If you want to play around with any external renders, V-Ray, Mental Ray, whatever, A-Ray, B-Ray, all the rays. But yeah, that's like pretty much it. 3-point lighting is very simple. I get asked about how I create my renders, and that's it. It's super simple. It just comes down to, I think, experimentation and setting up your lights in an appropriate distribution, or what would be the word? How they kind of interact with each other, I guess. But yeah, that's literally it. I could let this sit here and like turn up the samples to let it sit here and calculate for longer, but I have a feeling that the stream might be slowing down a little bit on your guys' end, just because this tends to make things go a little bit slow for my machine, especially while streaming. But yeah, that's basically it. And we have a little bit of extra time here, so we can play around, I think, with our scene and adding some more variation. Really the key to setting up a scene like this, if we go to wherever, I had that image. When creating a scene like this, for me, it's really easy when doing something like this to just duplicate something multiple times and it ends up looking really bland and boring, which is kind of what we have right now. So if you look at this image, you can see that the height of every tree is completely different. There's also a good distribution of heights between the trees. It's not like they're all tall over on one side and all short on the other. So variation is super important. There's also some variation between the colors of my trees. I think that's really important for doing like a little low poly scene like this. It's also important for doing something, you know, higher poly or super realistic. Same thing with, you know, the rocks and grass and everything. Variation, variation, variation. Same thing when you are texturing a character. If you are texturing a character, you don't want everything to look exactly the same. You want some variation in there. So I think it's fine for just like setting up something quick and like trying to block it out, but this feels really, really boring compared to something like this, where there's so much more variation and uniqueness to the scene. So definitely keep that in the back of your head if you guys are wanting to play around or experiment with something like this. And for some reason the texture on my grass is messed up. I'm not sure what happened there, but that got deleted, so that's fun. We have about like 10 minutes or so here for questions and just kind of hanging out and chatting. It doesn't even have to be a question about what we worked on for tonight's stream. I am at your disposal, I guess, so to speak. What about the black in the rendered image? How do you remove it without overlighting the scene? That is an excellent question. Allow me to show you. Let me open up one of those renders. So, in this case, you can see how black and dark that is at the top of the screen right there. So there's a couple ways you could get rid of that. The environment is really important to interacting with your light, obviously. And for instance, if we were to slide this back towards our scene here, that is typically the objective or the point with creating a curved or sloped background like this. So in photography, this is often the case because it kind of blends the ground into the background, which kind of creates this kind of infinite effect for the background. You can see that there's still some black back here though, so let me show you one way that you can get rid of that, or one way that I like to try to get rid of that. And typically if it's something quick and I don't want to sit here and play with the lighting of my scene, if I'm really happy with the lighting of my object and not happy with the lighting of my scene, like there's this black spot back here, I'll show you what you can do. Let me just find the render really quick, wherever it is. My computer is a little bit frozen here. There we go. Cool, so here is my render for the image, and I'll just undo or hide all of these so that you can see my render. This is the original render here that I have, and what we can do here is create a new layer. Whoops. And I'll just use a bunch of hotkeys. And typically what I'll do is I'll grab the gradient tool, and this, you can do this in, you know, you don't have to be using Photoshop or whatever, so I'll try to keep it a little bit more general. And what I'll do is I'll just sample a couple colors back here in the very back. So I'll sample this lighter color, and then I'll sample this slightly darker color, and then I'll just draw up a quick little gradient, and that kind of covers things up. So to get rid of that, I'll just add a layer mask and find a good place for that. Maybe like about, that's a little bit too dark, so maybe something like that right there. And then what I have previously done is I rendered the the scene with a mask here, so it's just the trees by themselves. So I have that on another layer so that the background is a little bit better there, and you can see how that kind of gets rid of that super, super dark background. And maybe you can play with your opacity if you want to kind of adjust that a little bit, and then any other post-processing effects that you want to do here to kind of clean that up. Typically, I will adjust some of my my levels and my what's it called, my curves for my lighting to adjust some of what we're looking at. So, for instance, what you can do here is Control-Alt-Shift-E, I believe is the hotkey, and Control-M to adjust the curves of your image if you want to make things a little bit lighter or darker or anywhere in between. And you can kind of get the same effect here by adjusting your levels, which is Control-L in Photoshop. And then kind of play with that and adjust that even more until you get maybe a little bit closer to the colors or the effect that you so desire. But that's basically it. It's pretty simple to set something like this up, like I said, with 3-point lighting, and that is how I typically get rid of that super duper dark background, which can be very frustrating to deal with, especially when you're already happy with the lighting on your scene. What are your go-to brushes? So I have a number of default brushes here set up in Photoshop that I use all the time. I have a bunch of different brushes that I use, and if you're interested in grabbing them, they are on gumroad.com/polygon right here at the top. Polygon's brushes. And that comes with free updates forever. Somebody was just asking me about this on Instagram today. And they were interested in some of the other brushes in here. So recently I updated my, so that comes with a bunch of brushes. I recently updated my, where is it? Insert hand brush. So for those that have my hand brush and enjoy using that, I definitely love my hand brush. It's a simple insert brush that creates a really clean hand here that you can, that actually has subdivision levels, so you can reconstruct those after you insert it, which is very nice. I recently added, and I haven't updated it yet, I'll be updating it here in the next few days or so once I have time, but I recently added a foot to it because I got tired of sculpting feet. That's why I created this base hand, because I got tired of sculpting hands. So I also created a base foot little insert here. And the way that these are both set up are very nice for a couple reasons. For the hand and the foot, you'll notice that all the toes and fingers are separate meshes, and that is on purpose. That is so that you can adjust your hand and foot for a variety of different types of people. So if you have a character with really big hands, you will find it hard if the geometry is all connected to adjust the scale and proportion of, say, your fingers and make them really thick. But with this way, you can scale them up, or you can maybe even scale up one finger, get it really thick, and then duplicate it multiple times. Similarly, you can do that with your toes down here. So I will be adding that here, like I said, in the next few days. But that is a really nice brush. In terms of other brushes that I just are kind of my go-to, I use the Move brush for literally just about everything. It's 90% of my entire workflow. I love my clay brush. I love my trim brush. It's probably the first 3 or 4 brushes that I use the most. I really like my Sharp Soft brush, which is kind of like a Dam Standard or Damien Standard brush. If you guys are familiar with that, it's just a little bit softer. I would say it's kind of like if a Dam Standard and a standard brush had a baby. And then on top of that, there's my mech brush and all sorts of other stuff that I enjoy using. Check it out if you're interested in it. Interested in my brushes, I should say. Again, that is just gumroad.com/polygon. My brushes are up here at the top. You're like a lifesaver, thanks. Yeah, I love, like I said, I love the insert hand and foot. It's very nice to have. How did you get into ZBrush? That's a good question. Back in my college days, I was really interested in animation, 3D animation at the time, and I was playing around a lot with Maya and creating simulations and little things like that. And I realized that I hated animating. It was really, really hard, and I just didn't like it. I was decent at it, like for the very small amount of time that I did play around with it, and I think I could have made a career out of it, but it just wasn't for me. And I ended up discovering digital sculpting through some art websites, played around with Mudbox for a while, didn't really like it, and then kind of fell into ZBrush, and it's all downhill, or maybe a little bit uphill from there. How high do you go on your Dynamesh resolution? That's a good question. I would say your resolution for your geometry should always be how should I word this? It should only be as high as you need. So for instance, with this hand, if I Dynamesh this at 128, that's obviously too low because it starts merging together the fingers there, so maybe let's try like 300. It's still merging some stuff, that's fine. 400 is more than enough because it's still retaining all the shape there. I can tell though that it's just gonna have some problems here because the finger is a little bit too close there, so yeah, I'll just move it really quick, and now we'll try that and give it a quick Dynamesh, and voila, we got it. So as low as you can possibly keep it while still retaining the form that you want is what I would say. I wouldn't say that there's like ever a specific number because Dynamesh depends on the scale of your objects, the scale of your tools, your 3D models. So if your object's really large and you Dynamesh really high, it's gonna be different than if it was at this scale right here. There's not like really a specific number that I stick with. But yeah, it goes all the way up to 4096. It's not really super important. I don't really pay attention to the resolution of my geometry. I more so just have the number of polygons that I need, and I don't really think about it too much other than that. Maybe if I am like doing some low poly stuff in ZBrush, then I will, start to be a little bit more cognizant of my poly count, but other than that, if I'm just sculpting away, it's whatever I need at the time. Nothing too specific. But yeah, it doesn't look like we have any other questions in chat, so I think that is where we will go ahead and end the stream for tonight. So thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. Like I said before, if you guys are joining us a little bit late and are interested in creating low poly assets in ZBrush, creating some cute little scenes, or interested in learning more about lighting and rendering, then check out the stream later once it gets uploaded on YouTube. If you guys want to check out my YouTube, it is just youtube.com/Polygon. Again, the Gumroad/Polygon for my brushes, base meshes, materials, courses as well, like my Appeal Academy course, which is appeal.academy. If you guys want to learn how to make stylized and appealing characters, much like these three goons up here. Yeah, Instagram, social, whatever. Check it out if you're interested. And boom. Beautiful. All right, you guys have a fantastic rest of your night, and I hope to see you next Tuesday, same time, same place. Final thing, the ZBrush Summit is this weekend, and I think I have the website pulled up here. If you guys don't know what the ZBrush Summit is, it is a 3 or 4 day or 3-day event, I think, because the Sculpt Off is on the 26th. If you guys are not aware of this, go to summit.pixelogic.com. This is kind of like the big ZBrush event that happens each year. I think this is like the 4th year this has been going on. I will not be attending in person, but I will be watching online during the live stream, so if you see me in chat, definitely say hi. But yeah, you don't really need to register or anything like that to watch online unless you want to get an email reminder when things are going live. There's a live sculpt off on Thursday, and then there are presenters with live events for the rest of the weekend. So definitely check it out. I will be there, like I said, watching in chat. Say hi if you see me. All right, you guys have a great rest of your night. Like I said before, Ellie and Day in the Sky, JC, Amir, goodbye, everybody. See ya.